We're back at it, Travis. Hooked, the kayak English resource.
Welcome. Yeah. Big week, big news today. A lot of stuff going on, a lot of different things going on with Eco and also some of our vendors. And today we got a good one.
Talking to Bixpy, talking to Houman, the founder of Bixpy.
So, Jonathan, we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. So we probably ought to hop right into it.
Yeah, get right going. Did I butcher it? Houman, did I say it right? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's correct. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
good man.
Excellent.
Good man. Well, tell us about you. Tell us about Bixby and kind of start it off. Let you lead, man.
Sure. Yeah. So you guys obviously know that we build motors and batteries for small watercraft, sort of personal watercraft, what we call personal watercraft. So kayaks, paddleboards, dinghies, anything that'll fit one or two people in it. And we started the company with the sort of premise that if you have a portable watercraft, then you should be able to have a portable motor. Everything else that's made for kayaks and paddleboards is made with the consideration of weight savings and portability and all of that. So we started the company based on that same premise that if you're taking a 45-pound kayak out, you shouldn't be putting a 68-pound motor or battery on it. Now we've got different battery options we offer with our motors, and then we're also offering power banks for the same group of people, essentially. So sort of waterproof, really rugged power banks for powering fish finders and pumps and phones and so on and so forth. So that's sort of a nutshell what we've done over the past few years. The product has obviously gone through various iterations. So we started with what we called a Bixpy Jet, and we've gone through what we called at that point Bixpy Jet, and then when we went to the next iteration, we realized we needed a name for it. So then we called that one a J1, and then we called the next one a J2, and then now we're up to a K1. The names are meaningless. We started out with a Bixpy Jet, so we were going to call them BJ1, but we thought that doesn't sound really good, so we dropped the B and we just called it a J1. And that's it. I mean, that was, and then when we got after J, we're like, well, what's after J? K sounds good, so now it's a K1. So so that's sort of a brief overview of what we've done in the past few years. These motors. I mean, obviously, there's a lot more detail to it, but yeah.
How did
So
how did you get into this? Were you a kayaker first, or were you like snorkeling first and you kind of wanted, something to get you a little further? What was kind of what's your background
yeah,
on that?
no, I wasn't actually. I was I had another. I did like being on the water for sure. Yeah, I've always enjoyed being on the water as opposed to in the water. Just as a general rule of thumb. And I bought a small that Hobie sail kayak, the Tandem Island. So I had retired from a previous business, essentially for a while. So I bought one of those, and I was sailing around, and we got stuck. The whole story is that I got stuck out there with my friend, and we couldn't get back. We thought it'd be really good to put a motor on this thing. Um, and at that time, that was when I was sort of doing nothing else really. It was just playing in my garage with skateboards and drones and so on. So I was familiar with that motor and battery technology. Um, and I thought, man, if these things can push a skateboard and a fat dude up a hill, they should be able to push a kayak across water because there's no hill in water. So that's basically where it got started.
Who man, tell us like from kind of the entry level into a Bixby product to kind of the cream of the crop. Like how far is that spread and what do you think just the an entry level person that's maybe putting it on an inflatable paddleboard or
Mhm.
something like that all the way to the guy that's got a Hobie PA 14 or something he's looking to push. Um, Give us kind of that rundown on the product.
Right. So right now we only have that one motor that puts out about one marine horsepower, and the we've got 24, 25 different adapters that we sell with that motor. So our primary focus, aside from obviously building bigger motors, is get batteries that are well tuned to your use case. So we have a smaller battery that floats. It's about the size of a paper rim, I guess, if you want to sort of reference it that way. And you can put that's a really good battery to put on paddleboards, small kayaks, inflatable kayaks, like folding kayaks. We even put these on the origami kayaks, like the Oru kayaks and so on, right? So that's a really good option for that. It weighs about 7 pounds. It floats. It'll keep you out in the water for about 5-6 hours. And then we go up to the bigger battery, which is about 20. Well, the first iteration was about 25 pounds. We've been able to reduce that now down to just over 20 pounds. And that keeps you on the water like all day. So that's for your tournament guy, for the guy who wants to be out all day and just motorize and really focus on his fishing or whatever else he's doing, as opposed to um, kayaking, if you will, right? So yeah, that's the sort of gamut. And what we really focus on is making sure we have adapters that make the whole experience very plug and play. So if you've seen our product, it comes in a box that just has everything in it, everything down to the nuts and bolts that you're going to use to put on your kayak. More than, I would say, 2/3 of the adapters we sell, you can install on a kayak in less than a minute. So you can be from FedEx box to on the water within about 3 minutes if you really wanted to. With most of the adapters we offer, so that's where really a lot of our focus goes on is to make sure the product is usable. So, but yeah, that's the sort of the range of product we have right now. So,
I've been very impressed with your adapters and the adapter setups
mhm.
compared to your competition. I mean, I don't think there is any comparison. There's really from just the fin adapter for the paddle boards and things like that, and like the NRS products. Some of that super easy to the feel free pod adapters to the Hobie. We do a lot of builds here, and man, it makes it really nice when you guys really have an adapter for really any occasion and really some brand specific. I know you guys just started doing some hoodoo stuff and adapters, and but then also you do some universal stuff where if somebody has a kayak, a Van Hunks with a pod or something, that you could go through and mount that just about anywhere. So yeah, we've actually got to see that firsthand, and I think you guys have done a great job with that.
We start looking at how many of these kayaks are out there, how many other people want to motorize these kayaks, and we'll start working on an adapter to see if we can get the motor in there. During that process, when we're looking for an adapter, we kind of have to DIY everything ourselves, right? So we try and draw that line where, like, okay, if I was a DIY guy and I didn't have this kayak, could I stop at this point and put this on any other kayak? And then that becomes a DIY kit. So we sell a bunch of kits that are DIY kits for people who just have unusual requests or needs and whatever. So those become DIY, and then when we push the product through to the finish, that becomes your finished, boxed adapter for a particular kayak or for a particular use case. So, and that's really we spend probably as much time working out adapters and partnering with companies and making sure that they're also able to use our work to be able to motorize their products easily. We spend as much time on that probably as developing the product, honestly. Like there's a lot of work that goes into those adapters. So
They're all very nice quality. Your stern adapter is excellent quality. We you know
thanks.
we do run into everything here, and as the kayak industry is pretty cannibalistic as far as people taking off of other things, and you're starting to see a lot of kayak companies that have like the original Mirage drive from the Hobie. Well,
Mhm. Yeah.
the Hobie Mirage drive adapter you have will work in those kayaks as well, and we've been able to really transplant those into other kayaks and make your system work. Uh, because of the work that you guys do, to pass that on to the dealers and the end users. So it has been seamless for us.
Yeah, it's the only frustrating thing is when you do something and you come up with something that fits like 8 kayaks, and then suddenly one of the companies decides they're going to move one of their pins, or they're going to put like the handle somewhere in the way where things weren't, and you're like, oh, come on, man. What?
Yeah.
You could have put this handle anywhere. Why'd you do that? So, but yeah, that's yeah. Like I said, that's it takes. And then the other thing we've worked on, which is again, like it's an industry that's very young, I think, right? Um, so one of the things we worked on that's taken a lot of energy out of us is basically a database of what adapters fit which kayaks best, right? So we created a website. But at bixpy.info instead of bixpy.com. And when you go to bixpy.info, then we've got this table where you can pull up the kayak or the whatever you have, paddleboard, kayak, and by name, and then the model number, and then it'll tell you which adapters fit your kayak best, right? So that database has been a horrendous challenge to build because kayak companies so readily and easily change their stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not like car companies where they're held to any sort of accountability. If somebody decides they're going to put a handle on a kayak somewhere, they're just going to do it. They're not going to tell anyone. They don't need to tell anyone.
Yeah.
We always find it the hard way, obviously, because we'll get something from a customer who's trying to install and say, "Look, this handle is in my way. I can't do it." And we're like, "There's no handle there." They're like, "No, there is this year's model." So send you a picture. It's like, "Oh crap!" So we're gonna adjust the table. We got to adjust it after. So it's been interesting. But yeah, it's a constant game.
So we get a lot of customers that are, they're not. We get a lot of anglers. We ought to get a lot of first time kayak users and whatnot. And that J1 at the time was the perfect one. So say those people are coming back and they're like, should I go with the J1? Of course they can't now, but the K2, what's the biggest jump from that K1 and that J1 that would, entice somebody to stay with Bixby versus going with like a Newport or Torquedo or something else like that?
The real difference is when we first built the J1, there was, and to this day, honestly, there's really nothing else like it on the market in the sense that we have a 2.5-inch propeller that's closed, and we've got a system that's all integrated and all of that. So it's really hard to compare it to anything else that's on the market because pretty much everything else is similar. You got a big propeller, you got a big shaft, big motor. It's all the same thing. So in that sense, all we've done from J1 to K1 is just really fine tune the product, right? We've added multiple seals to it. We've made it all aluminum, so now it's much more efficient. That efficiency translates into longer run times and more power, durability, and all of that. So it's really just a much better product than it used to be, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. In that sense, we've improved on our product as we go along, obviously. So if you've had a J1 and you've liked it and you want to sort of upgrade, aside from that, externally comparing to other products, I think there is obviously a case use for every product out there, right? If you've got a Newport vessel, or if you've got a big Minn Kota and whatever, there's definitely cases where you want those bigger motors on your kayak. But our entire focus has been really small, portable, the smallest thing you can carry with you, ideally in a small bag, and just get you on the water and get you doing your stuff, right? So.
Yeah, no, I think it's really cool. And, people that are just getting into it, whether they're doing paddleboarding or kayak or whatever, they can really use that motor for whatever they want, which is really cool. Um, we were talking before we got on here. You guys got some new stuff, some exciting stuff coming out. Let's dive into that. Um, looks like you guys have a new battery coming out.
Yeah, so we released a bigger battery last year along with the K1. We released that 768 battery, which was a much bigger battery than we were selling. And again, that battery is designed to allow us to build sort of on that same platform with that same big extruded aluminum shell. And our next iteration to that, we sort of spoke to our suppliers and went back and forth a bunch of times, and we've been able to find that same lithium iron phosphate chemistry, but in a pack that's roughly 25% smaller. So the overall battery is about 20% smaller, the new one that's coming out, than the previous version was. So we'll have that out in about, I want to say, 3 to 4 weeks. So end of April, beginning of May. It doesn't matter what day I say; it's always 2 weeks or 3 weeks after that. Like it just seems like it doesn't matter what we do. Like if they say April 10th, somehow it becomes April 21st. But yeah, so that's that product gets basically a reduction, if you will, in size. So we're about 20% smaller on that battery, which is really nice because it was a heavy battery. So now it's going to be about just over 20 pounds, and same functionality, same output in terms of power and longevity. Um, and then yeah, so that's going to get released soon. We do have a power bank that we just released as well, that we think should be popular for the sort of really outdoor use, where you've got water and salt water and elements. Um, and that's a 77 watt hour battery. Again, it's based on a platform that we can build on. So, hopefully in the next little while, we'll have a bigger version of that as well, and so on. We just released our universal rudder adapter, which we're very happy about, because we've always sort of our rudder adapters, in my opinion anyway, they're probably one of the best places to put your motor, is on the rudder. If you've got a kayak that can handle that force, right?
Yeah.
Um, you can steer with it. You can pull it up. It's got a kick up feature. It's like the best of all worlds. The only disadvantage to a rudder setup is that if you've got to get to the motor and clear it off something, it's a little bit tough, right? But even then, there are ways you can pull it up and put it in reverse and do stuff. So we just released our, what we call, a Versa rudder, and this is a rudder that was designed from sort of ground up with a motor in mind, right? So this was a rudder that we built as a motor company, and basically it was designed with everything we've learned in the past 5-6 years about putting motors on a rudder, right? First of all, one of the biggest pains we've had for a motor being on a rudder on a lot of kayaks is the steering issue, right?
Mhm.
So if you run lines, all the rudders usually have some sort of a V-shaped system where you run lines and you pull from one side and push to the other side, or whatever it is, right? Those lines are fine when you're on a rudder. When you put a motor on there, those lines have to get really beefed up. They get a lot of stress on them. Sometimes it's hard to even steer with those lines when you're on their full power, right?
Yeah.
Because it's pushing so hard. It takes the slack out of the line. So there's a lot to consider. So one of the things I really wanted was to make sure we build a rudder that you can steer with some other mechanism. So we added what we used to call a pole steering that comes in our power pole adapters and all of that. We added that to the rudder. So now if you're on this kayak where there is no foot steering or there's no hand steering or whatever, then you can take a paintbrush handle and you're steering your rudder 180 degrees on most kayaks, and no weird forces acting against you or anything like that. That pole steering is right on the pivot point of the rudder. It's so easy to steer. It's so easy to set up, to tear apart. Um, and then, like I said, the rudder was really designed with motor in mind. So, we have 50% more surface area than the previous rudder. So even if you're not on their power, you're still getting really good steering.
Will that integrate into your other mounts as well? Like, if someone say if they already had a Bixby motor, but they
Mhm.
just wanted to maybe go to the river and they weren't gonna use the motor, is that integratable into your other mounts as well, just to use as a rudder, like just a steering method?
Like, if you just bought that thing as a rudder.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's the like I say selfishly, it's the best rudder on the market right now. There's nothing even close to it. Our rudder has wheels. Like, nobody else's rudder has wheels. No, because we had to. So there were a few considerations, right? There were a few challenges in there. One was to, like, make sure we have a smooth pull up system, and when you have a motor on there, it's what we decided was just finally just put a couple of small um, nylon wheels on the top of it. It just makes it that motion much nicer. And then yeah, we really try to make a rudder that's a rudder on its own right, and then attach a motor to it, and then come up with things like, where do you run the wire, because that was always a big issue with all the other rudders we had, is because they weren't really meant for a motor, so the wire was always kind of dangling on the side somewhere. This has an actual place where you run the wire through, and you zip tie it to your rudder and so on. So, but yeah, as just a regular rudder, it's an amazing rudder. Actually, it's aluminum, thick aluminum, anodized aluminum blade. So for sure.
That yeah, that should help with, rigidity, because sometimes you get some of those rudders that are plastic and they're just so
Yeah.
long that it's just, you don't always get the response, that you want on there, but it being aluminum, you should get really good response on turning, and even with or without the motor.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's the whole. That was the other issue, is when you have an extra 2 pounds hanging off the bottom of the rudder. When you turn, that rudder tends to bend up and do a weird sort of a thing, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, with this, there's no bending at all.
awesome.
So yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, what's your, curious, what's your kayak of choice? What are you getting on the water with if you're going?
Dude, it just depends. It's funny, we have so many kayaks here, right? Because we swap kayaks and motors with companies. Um, I think it's almost like they all do something really really well, and then there are probably things that can be improved on every kayak, right? Um, so uh, it just depends what I'm doing, man. Like I go out a lot to Mission Bay, and I'll take my dog or something, right? My favorite, just like all around, is basically the lightest thing I can take.
Yeah,
I don't like the heavy stuff, because the heavy stuff is brutal,
yeah,
right? Um, so the lighter the better, on my from my perspective.
yeah,
I like the inflatables a lot. I mean, some of the companies that make amazing inflatables. Boat makes amazing. Isle makes amazing inflatables now. Isle has got like this series of stuff, just really really cool, rigid, super rigid. They're coming up with motor mounts on them and stuff. Like, it's really cool stuff. Those are awesome if you're just going out for like a couple of hours. You want to throw your dog on there, do your stuff. We got to try Oru kayaks last year. We sort of partnered with them, and did some promo stuff, and so I got a couple of their kayaks. Unbelievable! Like the idea of like folding something into
yeah,
a kayak and then getting into it on water, and you're like, what? Like, is this real? And then you realize, actually, this is way safer than anything else, because you can't puncture it, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so so that's, yeah, those are super cool, and again, really portable, right? Like, you can carry this thing, just throw in the back of your truck. um, but yeah, I mean, everything for a purpose, right? If we're going out to ocean, obviously we want the bigger kayaks, right?
yeah.
So we'll take a Vibe, or we'll take a Hobie or something that's a bit bigger. It's got a little more space for your junk. But yeah, I mean, I like all of them. All, like, they're all my children. I love them equally. As long as you can put a motor on them, I like it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's really cool. We get, here in Lake of the Ozarks, come summertime, we get a lot of, pleasure boaters. We got a lot of people that just want to get out, short, in the mornings when it's super calm. And it's been really cool having people come in with paddle boards, that enjoy doing that, but they're like, I want to go a little further and be able to, or, be able to get back really easy.
Right.
So it's been really cool seeing, people come in and get a Bixby, because some of these people are just getting inflatable ones that they can, tear down, put
Yeah.
up and, carry up the dock or up the, to their house. But it's really cool getting a Bixby, throwing that thing on there, being able to, I mean, you're not gonna, you don't have to worry about steering it. You're paddle boarding, but
Right.
you can get out there and get a little further. But it's really cool seeing those on some of those paddle boards.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, paddleboarding becomes a different sport with a motor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can, like, it's just, you can kind of do whatever you want, right? Now you're not sort of tied down to what you can do physically, right? You can
Yeah.
you can go a little further. You can sort of fight current a little bit if you get stuck a little bit. So yeah, it's definitely changes that sport big time. So
Jumping back to that new battery that you guys have,
mhm.
the 768. As far as like what is that in we talk about amp hours here in the shop all the time, like a 60 amp hour, 100 amp hour. Where does that convert into amp hours as far as with that motor?
Ah, I suck at this. So 68 and 35. It's like a 30 something amp hour battery.
Okay, so it's not like
Yeah.
terribly small, but it's not like, a massive battery either.
No. So one of the things we do, so this is one of the criticisms that people have of us, right? Is that how come I can't use my own battery, right? And like and we get some kind suggestions and we get some really rude suggestions, right? Well, why you can't use your own batteries? Like, you guys, unbelievable. This company will never survive like this. And so my answer is always, it's the same standard sort of arrogant answer that other companies give, is that like we want to control that experience, right?
Yeah,
We don't want people plugging stuff into it that we don't know. And man, like the marine people, they are DIY kind of people, man. Like, you give them anything with like a red and a black wire, they'll
yeah,
plug it into everything they can. It's like, no, man, you can't do that. It's like, yeah, it's not. So, like, but really, like, our purpose is to just have everything within our control. So yeah, so that battery is a 30 amp hour battery, but we have fine tuned it to our motor, right? So although it is a 30 amp hour battery, it identifies more like a 50, 60 amp hour battery with our motor, because
yeah.
it's so well tuned into that motor. So it runs for about 26 hours on trolling speed,
Wow.
on that battery, that motor. Um, so that's one of the reasons. Or the other batteries is much smaller. It's about 13 amp hours or something, but you can still troll with it for about 11 hours. So, and it's only 7 pounds. So that package is really important, and we fine tune the motor to the battery and the battery to the motor, basically, right? So, um, but that's how we sort of control the experience, if you will. Yeah.
That's cool. JT, you wanna pop in here? I'm kinda curious if there's, like, do you see any stuff, questions on the forum or anything like that, Bixby specific that you see occasionally, questions or stuff like that?
There was a conversation about, Bixby on there versus, like the Torpedoes and a lot of that, and, we see a lot of that conversation more in the beginning, like, for beginners and stuff, and I think there might even be a misconception that, like, Bixby is only for beginners, but I think you've kinda quashed some of those or squashed some of them rumors too. I mean, honestly, you were kind of speaking my love language when you were talking about simplicity, plug and play. I can't stand clutter, and I just would love the idea of, just out of the box and in my kayak in a minute or two, and no drilling and
Yeah.
all that too. So, um, but you know, could you talk a little bit more about, like, let's say you are a serious tournament angler, like this
Mhm.
motor could still propel a bigger kayak, right? For a tournament, you're talking about
Yeah.
26 hours at trolling speed. That's still a big deal.
Yeah. So I think there's this sort of idea, like how bigger, better, faster, and so on, right? First of all, when it comes to motorizing a watercraft, that's a personal watercraft, like a kayak, a paddleboard, and all. First of all, these things have very defined hull speeds, so you can put the biggest motor on there if you that you can find. But if you're not planing, you're not going above 5 miles an hour. There's nothing you can do about that. That's just the way things are. You'll move more water, you'll make more splash, and you'll make a bigger wake. You can put four of our motors on a pro angler, you're going to still go like 5.1 miles an hour. That's it. That's all you're going to get. But you're going to move a lot more water. It's going to look a lot sexier for sure. But you're not going any faster. Like, if you look at videos where they've got these big 3 horsepower motors, they're just planing out of water to some degree. So yeah, they are going a little bit faster. Um, but at the end of the day, it's a kayak, right? If you want to go faster, you get a jet ski. Um, so so from our perspective, it's like, all right, so we're going to give you a motor that you're going to put on there, and it's going to help you do more, right? It's going to help you, assist you to get to places. It's going to help you when it's windy. It's going to help you if you want to be hands free. It's going to do that. If you just want to put a motor and get from A to B as quickly as possible, then that's a different story, right? Then yeah, go buy. You can do that very cheaply. Actually, you can buy a really small, cheap, nice Minn Kota, get a deep cycle battery, and put it on there somehow, and A to B really fast, really quick, right? Yeah, it's going to weigh like 82 pounds, whatever it is. But if that's your purpose. But I think what you know we tried to create an experience, right? So you're taking something that's really small and portable, right? So at the end of the day, like if you're on a paddleboard, um, are you going to carry 60 pounds of motor and battery and stuff? Like it's insane, right? So like 10 pounds is it. You can't do more than 10 pounds, right? So plug and play, portable, easy, assist, right, to some degree. I think that's really the point. So yeah, I mean, if you're an angler guy who just wants a little more push, wants a bit of assist, wants to stay longer and windy and current and wave and so on, perfect, right? Snap it on and off you go. Um, Pull it up when you want to pedal or paddle. But yeah, I think that's the yeah. But I mean, everything gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So I think some people just always want the biggest thing they can put on everything, and that's cool. That's fine. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think it's been really cool talking to you guys and kind of getting an idea of where, you guys are coming from. But I think you guys are doing a great job. It's really cool to see the stuff that you
Thanks.
guys are coming out with and about to release. Can't wait to see it in the stores and talk to people about it and get them interested as well. Well, cool, man. Thanks again for coming on here.
Thanks,
Guys,
guys.
we
Yeah.
really, really appreciate it. You guys subscribe, like, comment, all this stuff. We'll be coming out with some Bixby stuff, announcements and whatnot. Glad to be a part of the announcement with you guys and teaming up on this. All this stuff you guys can find at bixpy.com or at ecofishingshop.com as well. If you guys need help install or anything like that, plenty of information here between the two companies to get your kayak needs taken care of. But again, thanks for coming on here. I really appreciate it.